Get ready for the main event podcast. The guys are about to go live. Get ready for the main event podcast. The guys are about to go live. Get ready for the main Monday morning. Geez, 9 a.m. Phoenix time. I'm a little early today. Gotta do a little Christmas shopping today. Get things wrapped up for a long holiday week. A couple weeks here coming up. So let's check the sound here real quick. All right. As usual, sounds pretty good. All right. So, long weekend of sports. Good weekend of sports. Championship weekend in college football. NHL got their start date and their schedules out. We're going to talk about that here a little bit. Then, of course, all the NFL games. A lot of excitement. Like, for instance, what are the Jets doing? Going to delve into that a little bit more. Of course, they got their first win against the Rams. And I don't know who to, be more mad at, right? The Jets for losing the number one pick or the Rams for just not looking good. It's amazing how good the Rams looked against the Cardinals a couple of weeks ago and how bad they looked yesterday, right? So all part of the fun that we're going to get into as we get this started. Of course, let's start off first, get this out of the way. The NHL finally comes out. There's been some discussion. We've talked about it a little bit on here regarding their season starting. It was, the rumor was January 15th was going to be the start date. And that turns out to be 56-game regular season. Is set to begin January 13th coming up here. So right around the corner after Christmas. It's going to be preceded by short training camps. And if everything goes as is to plan, the regular season will wrap up May 8th. Playoffs will begin right after that, about 3 days after that. And the Stanley Cup will be won by someone in mid-July. So NHL starts off their season. And, they did come out also and say, I know it's so far in the future, but they did come out and say that the next offseason will be really short. It will include an expansion draft, obviously, because Seattle's coming to the league after this season. And then it's their plan as of now is to return to a quote-unquote regular hockey season in 2021 and 22. Obviously, starting October is when the NHL used to start before all this went on. So, on there. And I just giggle a little bit because intern says, I sound good. I don't know if that's because the microphone sounds good or just overall in general. I'm not sure. So she logged in this morning. I forget everybody's on vacation this week. So, part of the fun. So the schedule isn't come out yet. But obviously they have the start date. They announced the schedules and divisions yesterday as well. They're going to have the North, East, Central, and West divisions. And realignment is necessary this season because they want to keep travel limited. Keep that in mind here as we get to the teams that are in each division. Because they want to travel limited and regional as possible. And they don't want to obviously cross the international borders since Canada is pretty much locked down and will continue to be so. So teams really can't go back and forth. And so, like I said, North Division will be the Canadian teams, Ottawa, Montreal, Toronto, Winnipeg, Edmonton, Calgary, and Vancouver. It's funny. I know in a previous podcast, I was like, what is there, 4 or 5 Canadian teams? I completely forgot about Montreal and Winnipeg. Yeah, I think everybody does, right, at this point in the season in NHL world. The East Division is all the eastern, northeastern teams there: Boston, Buffalo, New Jersey, Islanders, Rangers, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, and Washington. I mean, look at that schedule, right? I mean, Canada guys, Vancouver to, Toronto's not the smallest trip by any stretch. Vancouver to Montreal is not the shortest trip by any stretch. So there's some traveling in Canada. And then look at this East Division. You have basically 4 teams. And I'm even include Philadelphia in that. 5 teams, all in the New York area, an hour and a half from New York. Buffalo's a little farther, but Buffalo, New Jersey, Islanders, Rangers, and Philadelphia are all right there. Very little travel for those teams that playing each other. Pittsburgh's a little bit farther. Then you got Washington, which is it's an 8-hour drive, but an hour flight north of New York there. And Boston is an hour north there as well for there. So the East Division is going to have very little travel involved. That's fantastic, right? Then you got the Central Division, which will be the lower southern teams, and then some Midwest teams. So you have Carolina, Chicago, Columbus, Detroit, Florida, Dallas, Nashville, and Tampa Bay. Okay? So a lot more travel in the Central Division, right? Then the West Division, which of course is where the Arizona Coyotes are going to be. Anaheim, Arizona, Colorado, Minnesota, Los Angeles, Vegas, San Jose, and St. Louis. Who doesn't fit in that, right? St. Louis. Minnesota, excuse me. St. Louis, even then, is a little farther north there. But look who the Coyotes get in their division, right? Colorado, who was one of the best teams last year. Minnesota was a good team last year. Vegas is always a great team out here. St. Louis has been a good team the last couple of years. West is pretty stacked in terms of that for the Coyotes. Good luck to them, right, going into the season. Of course, you got the Ducks in there that have been kind of down the last couple of years. But you've got the Kings, which have been down as well. But I just find it interesting that all the teams are fairly close, all within a couple-hour plane ride until you get to St. Louis and then Minnesota on there. But, I mean, you can't put everybody in the Central. But I think you could have put Dallas into the west side, right? At least it's southern. At least it's that. But then again, it doesn't make sense to have Dallas in the Central if you have Tampa Bay and Florida in the Central as well. So, anyway, that's the realignment for the NHL. I mean, I like what they did. They're doing the best they can, setting these divisions up to minimize travel and get this season in to try to avoid everything going on and not be in a bubble again. I mean, the NHL is a league that needs fans. Their revenue is based a lot on fan spending money, going to the games. And if that's not going to happen, especially so teams like San Jose, for instance, can't play in Santa Clara County up there. Same problem the 49ers have in the NFL. And the 49ers are here down in Phoenix. They're playing the rest of their season here in Glendale, even though they'll be home games. And they're practicing down here and everything. Well, the San Jose Sharks are in the same boat. Their training camp is going to be in Scottsdale at the Ice Den, which is where the Coyotes practice facility is. And you don't know when they're going to be able to start their home games in San Jose up there. So it'd be interesting to see if we have both teams here in the Valley playing again, obviously. And obviously the NHL has to do what the NFL did, where they made sure that San Francisco was not playing this at home the same time the Cardinals were, and they planned on that. So if this did have to happen, so the NHL is probably doing that for their schedule as well, in case San Jose needs to play someplace else. Since they're here practicing in Phoenix, I'm assuming it would be Phoenix again. But you don't know. Could be Vegas. Could be anything. But that's the other thing is a lot of the Western teams are in California. So how's that going to affect the season if the other California states start to lock down, right? So the way you have Anaheim going. You have the Kings, of course, down in Southern California. San Jose up north. We already just talked about them. That's 3 teams that'll be affected. Las Vegas is shutting down for the most part, although their sports teams are still able to play. So just interesting factor here going into next year. Like another thing is in the Montreal Canadiens, they don't have the green light to play at their home, the Bell Center. The Quebec government is still studying the matter, and they'll know in the next few days if they can play. The Canucks, um, you know, have to do a lot more quarantining before they get together to start training camp on January 3rd, and that's what the government over there in Vancouver is doing. So I mean, there's going to be a lot of additional factors, and some teams are going to have to go through more protocols to get ready to play the season and to get through this season. And of course, the NHL's health and safety protocols have not been released yet. That'll be coming out. All they've done so far is announce the starting date. As I said, the preseason, some teams are starting January 3rd. So I'm going to assume a lot of teams are starting around January 3rd. And then they let out the divisions so far. So there's still a lot of question marks coming up. And actually, this just came out. The teams that did not return to play in the summer, meaning in the bubble, Buffalo, Detroit, New Jersey, Ottawa, Anaheim, Los Angeles, and San Jose, their training camps will actually open on December 31st. Everybody else will be January 3rd. So everybody that went to the bubble will be January 3rd or on. So their training camp rosters are going to be capped at 36 skaters, meaning forwards and defensemen, the on-ice people. Unlimited amount of goaltenders will be on the training camp. No exhibition games this season, so they're going to get their training camp against themselves, and then boom, right into the season. Salary cap did remain at the same at $81.5 million, and teams will be permitted to have a 23-man roster. So because of COVID restrictions, they've expanded that. And because of travel restrictions and potential quarantine rules, if a player must be called up from the AHL on short notice, NHL teams will also be allowed to carry a taxi squad of 4 to 6 players in the 2021 season. So basically, you can't just call somebody up. It's like if somebody goes down this morning and you need to call somebody up from your AHL team, there's going to be travel restrictions. There's going to be quarantine rules from doing that, kind of like what the NFL has, where they have a 6-day mandatory quarantine before they can join the team. So now the NHL is going to allow a taxi squad of 4 to 6 players this season. So the taxi squad players will be permitted to practice and travel with the NHL team, but will only count against the cap or be allowed to play in a game if they are, quote, called up to the pro roster. So basically, it's like they are part of the AHL team, but they'll be part of the regular team, but you can pay them, and they don't affect the cap until they're called up. So the interesting thing about this is, they basically calling up your taxi squad is going to be subject to the regular recall rules. So basically, they're still going to allow them if a player goes to waivers to be sent from the pro roster. Like if they gets cut from the pro rosters, they send him down to the AHL. He's going to have to pass waivers to be sent back to the taxi squad. So if you bring a guy up in an emergency situation to play on your team from the taxi squad and you send him back down to the taxi squad, another team could steal him off of waivers. I like that because then teams aren't willy-nilly moving guys up and down. You have to have a strategy to it because another team could steal your guy. That's fantastic. I love that idea on the taxi squad. Same as the AHL. I love it. That way, you have to be strategic about who you bring up when and when you can send them down. You're not going to bring somebody up for one game and then send them back down with a chance of losing them. Eventually, you're going to lose them. Teams must carry a minimum of 3 goalies with them at all times, whether it's all 3 on the pro roster or one available on the taxi squad. And then the taxi squad guys are just on the pro team. They can't practice or play with any other organization outside of the NHL team. So their on-ice time is going to be strictly practice until they get called up. As I said, we're waiting for a schedule to come up still. But basically, Edmonton Oilers came out and they announced it kind of ahead of time, so it kind of leaked out. Each team in the East, Central, and West divisions which are the American divisions, as we went over, will play one another 8 times because they have 9 teams in that division. And then the North or the Canadian division will see each other 9 or 10 times because they have one less team. So the Canadian teams are going to get to know each other really well, playing each other 9 or 10 times in this season. So good luck with that, guys. It's saying that you should, being a 56 game schedule and the time frame they have to get it in. Basically, it's 56 games in 116 days. So, not a lot of days off. So one game every 2 days, basically. Well, the exact max is 2.07 days. In a normal 82 game season, teams play a game roughly every 2.28 days. So a little bit more, compacted schedule that's we're expecting this year. And it's going to be, they're expecting it to be kind of like the NBA, where you'll go and play a team a couple times without traveling. So we might see more of that where you travel. So, for instance, the Coyotes would travel to, let's just say Vegas. They would stay there and play it 2 games in a row, as opposed to taking off, play a game and then taking off and travel to another place. So players can opt out without penalty at and the deadline to do so is 7 days prior to the opening of the team's training camp. But if a player does opt out, they will not receive their salary for the season or count towards the salary cap, and the contract will be tolled to the following season. So basically, you don't get anything if you opt out as a player. You don't get paid. You don't lose a year of your contract. Basically, you get frozen to come back next year with everything on there. So if you have 1 year left in your deal, you opt out this year, you will still have 1 year left on your deal when you come back next year. Teams will have the option to forego that option, the tolling of a contract year. Basically, so if a guy opts out in 1 year contract, the team can still pay that contract and let that contract expire, but they have to make that decision within 30 days. So you might see this as an opportunity, especially for teams that want to unload contracts. If somebody opts out and they just want to unload that contract, they'll still pay it with the salary cap this year. You'll see some lower tier teams probably do that. And then that way you can get rid of that contract on a rate. So all the top 4 teams, from each division will qualify for the playoffs. So the first 2 rounds will be best of 7 series and be intra-divisional. So the first round will pit the first seed against the 4th seed. The second seed against the 3rd seed. Each division will produce a winner, at which point the last 4 teams standing will be reseeded based on regular season point totals, and again put first place against 4th, second against 3rd. So basically, you're going to play all these regular season games, right, against just your division. So the Central is going to play the Central, the West is going to play only the West. Then when the playoffs come, the top 4 teams are chosen, and then that top 4 teams will play each other to determine who's the best in the West. And then they'll play the winners of the other 4 divisions. So on there. So if you look at that, right? Let's see here. Let me get to the divisions here. So if you look at that in the West, right? You have the Ducks, the Coyotes, the Avalanche, Minnesota, LA, Sharks, St. Louis, and Vegas. So right now you can pretty much pen in, right? Vegas is going to be good enough. Avalanche are going to be good enough. So 2 of your 4 spots are pretty much taken right there. You're assuming St. Louis will be good enough. Minnesota could be good enough, and same with the Coyotes. So 4 teams out of that division. That's a hard division to get to that top 4 when you're the 5th or 6th team there, right? Same thing in the Central. You got Carolina, Blackhawks, Columbus, Dallas, Detroit, Nashville, Florida, and Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay is going to make it. Dallas is going to make it. So then of those other teams, what are the other 2 teams that are going to make it in? A lot of big names in the East, right? You got Boston. You got Buffalo. You got Jersey. Rangers, Islanders, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Capitals. Only 4 of those teams are going to make it out of there. Good luck. A lot of good teams are going to, a lot of good to better than good teams. Not great teams, but better than good teams are going to make the playoffs this year. So, be interesting. Then you got the expansion draft coming out after this year that they did address, but we don't need to get into that. I mean, that's just basically who you expose to the draft, who's not exposed to the draft. They're going to get a lot of good players, just like the Knights did when they came into the league coming up. So I'll get this article from sportsnet.ca, which breaks down. I used a couple different articles to talk about this, but I'll get the big one that breaks it down really nice. Answering up all these questions from Sportsnet. So put it out on Twitter at the Main Event Pod for anybody interested in that going forward. But it's a lot of information, and they're getting ready to start, and it's going to be an exciting season for the NHL. Absolutely. One thing that does get brought up in one of these articles is they're not even sure the Canadian teams can play in Canada. I mean, I talked about that with Montreal, right? Even without fans. So you might see the North Division play in the United States and still only play each other. Interesting thing. Like, how will that not benefit the Canadian teams that are in that North Division? So it's like, whoa, yeah, yeah. I think that'd be pretty exciting if San Jose has to play somewhere else and then the Canadian teams have to play somewhere else. I think that'll be pretty exciting to see. Definitely changes the season a little bit. Absolutely. So, see what it is. All right. Let's get into the real stuff here. What we're all here to see. Let's get into college football championship weekend happened over the weekend. Say that 10 times fast. College football bowl playoffs was announced. I did one of my thoughts on that, a couple of them this weekend. I'm not happy with it, but at the same time, I don't see a difference in it. I mean, does Ohio State deserve to be in the playoffs when they only won 6 games? I've been on that rampage for 3 weeks now. And then on top of that, they look like dog garbage against the Northwestern for most of that game till the end of it. I don't think they deserve to go in. They didn't earn their way in. And then Notre Dame got spanked by. They showed they don't deserve. They can't play with a team like Clemson, the one of the best 2 teams in the country. So do they deserve to go in? But then the argument comes out, right, where you've got, okay, so you have those question marks. But then who else would go in? I know a lot of people say Cincinnati. They're not ready. They're not going to make a good game. Absolutely not. Nobody wants to see Cincinnati go and get their butts kicked by Alabama or Clemson. I mean, people do. I see it all over. I see it all over. Twitter and everything. Everybody says they need a chance. Nah, I don't see it. I don't look forward to that at all. That type of a game. I just don't. It doesn't sound exciting. It doesn't intrigue me at all. Going forward. But Texas A&M, yeah, they're 8-1. I've been on that rampage that they should get in, over Ohio State because they at least played most of a schedule. But again, they lost by 3 touchdowns to Alabama early in the season. Are they better now? Do we want to see that rematch? Oklahoma isn't going to be a good match in there, and they finished in the 6th spot, right? So I mean, what else are they going to do? And this is why I actually advocate. And one of my big Steve's thoughts this weekend, I said maybe it's time to think about expanding the playoffs to get more teams available. But here's the problem. Are they going to be competitive games? I'm not too sure these 4 out of these 4, the first 2 games are going to be competitive. In case you don't know, you have Alabama at 1, Clemson at 2, Ohio State was at 3, and then Notre Dame was at 4. Your 4 playoff teams. So Alabama plays Notre Dame, Clemson plays Ohio State. One thing I think I've gotten out of this season is Alabama and Clemson are the two best teams, and it's not even close. There's those two teams, and then there's everybody else. So, like I said, I said it in one of my thoughts. I don't think it matters who's 3 and 4. The first game is not going to be that intriguing. Sure, there might be a close game or whatnot. If somebody upsets and Alabama or Clemson aren't in the finals, it'll be a huge upset. Huge upset. By far. So, that happens. So let's get into, we'll get into the bowl schedule first because that's the most important thing. And then we'll go to the ASU Oregon State. Illinois found their head coach, which I'm intrigued by. Arizona coaching search stuff. So I just, they came out with the playoff deal. And like I said, you can make an argument that Ohio State and Notre Dame don't deserve to be in there, as I said. You can also make an argument that there's really nobody else you want to see that even has a chance. Texas A&M got blown out by Alabama early in the year. That was early in the year, so maybe they'll be better now. But even then, does anybody think Alabama's not winning that football game? Give me one person that thinks Cincinnati's going to beat Clemson or Alabama. There's all this talk about how the group of 6 disrespected and they can't get in. Yeah, okay, so great. They beat a bunch of ranked teams. Again, Alabama and Clemson are on a level above everybody else. It's not even close. Alabama let Florida stay in that game on Saturday, and they still, even though that Florida was in that game a little bit, did you ever watching that game think that Florida had a chance to win that? You're just watching it. It's like Alabama's going to turn it on. And things like that. So I'm not getting my Facebook comments today. Let me try it a different way here because they're not coming up. I have it loaded up here. Doesn't like me. I do like how Mikhail says, "Look at you on so early." Hey man, I was up and ready to go earlier. I had to wait to go, man. Just so you know, I was ready to go at like 8 this morning. Got up this morning, pep in my step. And then Mikhail says, if you're looking at best matchups, then drop Notre Dame and put Texas A&M at 4. Give them the rematch. I mean, that's the argument. That's the match I wanted to see. Because Texas A&M played so much, played them so early in the season. And intern, what was the your both comment means? Since I missed that earlier. So I have it on my phone. You guys want a little production stuff? So I have it on my phone in front of me. The Facebook feed loaded up. No comments are coming up whatsoever. So I go to the Facebook app, switch over to that, and there they are. I don't get it. I don't get it at all. So, but even then, I guess my argument here is, Mikkel, is Texas A&M in that 4 spot. Are they beating Alabama? I don't think they are. So it doesn't matter really. I expect Alabama and Notre Dame to be the biggest blowout of that weekend. As of now, we'll address that. And Mikhail, we're going to do. We're not going to do all the bowl game season on our pick'ems, but we'll definitely do the final games on our pick'ems and finish out our college pick things there. And then Mikhail says Ohio State may have been screwed by the conference, but they have the best shot at beating Clemson. Ohio State didn't get screwed by the conference. They got every chance and help to get to that spot by the conference. And you think they could barely beat Northwestern over the weekend. If it wasn't for their running back running for 300 and something yards, they would have lost that game. You're not running for 300 and something yards against Clemson. The thing that makes Alabama and Clemson different, I think, watching these games over the weekend, is they don't blink. No matter what you do to them, they're ready to go right back out there. Like, there's no panic. There's it's just like, all right, let's go. And that's what's impressive about those two schools. Normally when a team, like take Florida LSU, right? That was a close game. and a kid panicked and threw a shoe 20 yards down the field and basically cost them the game. That doesn't happen with Clemson and Alabama. You can score a late touchdown with like a minute to go against Alabama, and they'll be right back on the field, poised and ready to go, and probably have a good shot at winning that game. And Mikel agrees, not beating Texas A&M isn't beating Alabama, but a better game than Notre Dame. I don't disagree with that at all. I think Notre Dame is going to get blown out by a lot of points. They showed it. They couldn't even. I think Alabama is better than Clemson, and this is going to sound weird, and I think Clemson can beat Alabama. But I think Alabama is the better team. And you saw how Alabama just took apart Florida, right? As the game went on, they left Florida in the game, but then they just went out there and did their thing, and they kept going. And then you saw how Notre Dame had no response for Clemson whatsoever all game long. They looked mismatched all game on there. And so Alabama's going to destroy Notre Dame, I think. But I agree. Ohio State does have the best chance to upset anybody in that weekend's games, but I don't know if they can do it. You just saw it. If without a 300 rushing, you're not rushing for 300 yards against Clemson. And Justin Fields was garbage. He wasn't even there. Was he even in that game? Did he even start? It was that bad of a game for him, right? So you got those games. Those are on January 1st this year. Of course, they moved the Rose Bowl. They're still calling it the Rose Bowl. The Rose Bowl game presented by Capital One, but it's not in California anymore. It is now in Arlington, Texas, at the AT&T Stadium. So how confusing is that? The Rose Bowl game presented by Capital One at AT&T Stadium. Let's get a couple more sponsors on that while we're at it, right? That's the first game on January 1st, 4 p.m. Eastern time, I believe, on ESPN. I actually have an enduro race we got to go film that day. Trust me, my iPad will be on for that one. Because that, of course, is Alabama and Notre Dame. Then the second game, Clemson and Ohio State. The better of the two matchups is January 1st at 8 p.m. I believe this is Eastern on ESPN. So, Mikel says the conference screwed Ohio State by initially deciding to play in the spring. Well, yeah, we've had that discussion thousands of times. The leadership of the Big Ten is garbage. Trash. They set themselves up for failure. They set themselves up to look like idiots, and they quite frankly did a great job of doing it. And Ohio State, I think if Ohio State had to play a 10-game season, they showed it against Northwestern there, they would have lost the game. They weren't going to go undefeated this year. You could see there were holes in them. They didn't play a hard schedule at all. They played Indiana. They beat them, and it was a close game. And then Northwestern was their other deal. They didn't play anybody hard. Big Ten Conference isn't good, other than Ohio State. They haven't been tested. Their first major test was against Northwestern, and they almost blew it. That's the issue with it, right? Other bowl games, because a lot of teams are not going to bowl games. A lot of bowl games have been canceled. The Guaranteed Rate Bowl has been canceled here in Phoenix this year, just last couple of days. No teams to go. And then there is something infuriating about these bowl games as well, but, there's some good matchups here, right? And actually, bowl season starts today. I mean, if you're into it, Appalachian State plays North Texas today. 2:30 p.m., I believe these are all Eastern, on ESPN. Tomorrow, you got the famous Idaho Potato Bowl, Tulane at Nevada versus Nevada. The nice thing about tomorrow, I'm going to actually probably tune into this game. UCF at BYU versus BYU. That's in Boca Raton, Florida. Pretty good matchup there. BYU should win that one, I would think. Then the 23rd, you have the R&L Carriers New Orleans Bowl. Louisiana Tech, Georgia Southern, if you're into that. Then you got, same day, you got Memphis at Florida versus Florida Atlantic in the Montgomery Bowl. Christmas Eve, New Mexico Bowl, Hawaii's playing Houston. That actually might be a good matchup there. Good old Todd Graham, bringing Hawaii to go against Houston, who had an up-and-down season with a lot of COVID, but they're a good team. Christmas Day, you got Marshall Buffalo in the Camellia Bowl, wherever that is, Montgomery, Alabama. Obviously, you have NFL football on Christmas Day this year, so don't forget about that. December 26th, you have the Union Home Mortgage Sarsaparilla Bowl or Gasparilla Bowl, whatever that is. South Carolina UAB. So South Carolina, who just had to hire a new coach playing, nobody wants to watch that. But the Cure Bowl on the 26th, Camping World Stadium in Orlando, Liberty and Coastal Carolina. That's going to be a good game of little small schools. That's going to be a fun game to watch. The Cure Bowl, December 26th. You also have Louisiana UTSA in the Serpro in Dallas. Lending Tree Bowl, Western Kentucky, Georgia State. Military Bowl, December 28th. Man, that would be great to have Army in that, wouldn't it? But nope, Army's bowl list right now with a 9-2 record. We're going to get in that in a minute. The Cheez-It Bowl on the 29th, which of course is now played in Orlando. Oklahoma State, Miami. Miami's a dang good team. That'll be fun to watch. Texas versus Colorado in San Antonio for the Alamo Bowl. Yeah, Texas. Wake Forest versus Wisconsin, December 30th. And Duke's Mayo Bowl. Iowa, Missouri in the Music City Bowl. Oklahoma, Florida in the Cotton Bowl. That'll be a good little game there. And, of course, that's in Arlington, Texas. Then you got the Armed Forces Bowl, Tulsa, Mississippi State. Again, no 9-2 Army in that one. But you can watch Tulsa play a 3-7 team. God, that's exciting. I can't wait for that garbage. Just absolute trash on the 31st. Tulsa, a good team. Tulsa's a good team. They're playing a 3-7 SEC school. Absolute joke. Here's the interesting thing on this one. The Arizona Bowl on the 31st. Ball State versus San Jose State. Is the next head coach, we're going to talk about this in a minute, of Arizona, going to be playing in Tucson in the stadium that he's going to be coaching at next year. It's possible. San Jose State's coach has been a big name in that, and now it's coming out that he might be the deal. Yeah, Mikkel says Army is losing out on the Independence Bowl. No Pac-12 team wants to play in it. Army would have lost, but it would have been a good game. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, and we're going to delve into that just a little bit. Army at 9-2 this year. Not going to a bowl game as of now. I mean, they could still get one with cancellations. And we got to watch crappy teams like Mississippi State at 3-7. Play Tulsa. How great would it have been to see Tulsa and Army play each other in the Armed Forces Bowl? But they have all these tie-ins and all of that garbage. But a 3-7 team should not be in a bowl game. Another one, AutoZone Liberty Bowl, West Virginia versus Tennessee. Another 3-7 team. Another garbage team playing in a bowl game at 3-7, Tennessee. Texas Bowl is Arkansas TCU. Chick-fil-A Bowl, Cincinnati, Georgia. Auburn, Northwestern in the Citrus Bowl. Of course, Auburn just got rid of Gus Malzahn. They're looking for a new head coach right now. Northwestern played Ohio State pretty well. January 2nd, you have NC State, Kentucky in the Gator Bowl. Ole Miss at Indiana versus Indiana in the Outback Bowl. I don't think Indiana's original starting quarterback will be back by then. He had that major knee injury, so that'll still be a fun one to watch. Oregon versus Iowa State in the Fiesta Bowl. Don't get me started on the Pac-12 right now with USC, Oregon in the championship game. Just an absolute joke that Oregon won the Pac-12 with 2 losses because Washington couldn't play in the championship game. Just an absolute joke by the Pac-12. How embarrassing. Pac-12 should be embarrassed. Orange Bowl, Texas A&M, North Carolina. I actually like that one. That's going to be a fun one. 8 p.m. Eastern on ESPN on the 2nd. Orange Bowl is going to be great. A&M in North Carolina. I'm going to love that game. So you have a bunch of 3-7 teams, right, playing in bowl games. While Army's sitting at home right now with no place to play. at 9-2. Just absolutely stupid. It's just garbage. Nobody wants to watch 3-7 Mississippi State play in a bowl game. Nobody. And against Tulsa too, which is a really good team. So I read this big article and I tweeted it out and I copied some of his stuff on my thing there. So we got Mississippi State at 2-7, South Carolina 2-8, and Tennessee 3-7 playing in bowl games. Nobody, not even Tennessee fans, want to watch Tennessee. They're garbage. Pruitt's an awful head coach, and the AD there just gave him a vote of confidence, saying he'll be back next year. South Carolina literally had to fire their head coach. They have a brand new head coach coming in this year at 2-8. Nobody wants to watch that garbage either. And Mississippi State 2-7, absolute garbage of a team, and they want us to watch it. If there's a year to realize that, I don't get worked up about it. I know a lot of people say things like, we got to add more teams. I don't get worked up on that. I just go with what the system is there. But it's time to reevaluate the bowl game system. When we have to, if you want us to watch these games, give us teams we want to watch. Because it's garbage. You're going to try to make me watch those 3 garbage teams. Nobody watched them in the regular season. And I want to see Army play somebody good. They'd be great against Tulsa. That would have been a great game. So all the rage this morning on the socials and everything and everywhere. So Ohio State, so Clemson's playing Ohio State, as I said, on the late game on January 1st. And Dabo Swinney has provided serious bulletin board material for Ohio State. Right? I like how people say, so this article starts off, it's from Football Scoop. I'll get it posted at the Main Event Pod like I do for the show notes. It says, the College Football Playoff Selection Committee had the tough job of ranking the 4 teams to make the College Football Playoff. It really wasn't that tough. I said that yesterday in my thoughts predictions, where I said the decision is pretty easy to make after the weekend. The hard part would have been putting A&M in over Notre Dame. The hard part would have been taking Ohio State out and putting somebody else in. They made it easy by going with the Blue Bloods, and the teams that didn't deserve to be in it. That was the easy part. They did the easy thing. If they want to do the hard thing, they should have left Ohio State and or Notre Dame out. That would have been the hard thing to do. The committee didn't have a tough job. They went the easy route. But then they released the USA Today coaches poll, which was released this morning. Check out this. I'm going to read it straight from this article. Despite only playing 6 games, the Big Ten champion Buckeyes were in the playoff field for 53 of the 61 coaches who voted. So 53 people voted that Buckeyes should be in the playoff field, right? Coastal Carolina, Florida International, UTEP, Texas A&M, Alabama, and TCU all had the Buckeyes just outside the playoff field at number 5. So basically, Jamie Chadwell of Coastal Carolina coach, Butch Davis of Florida International, Dana DeMel at UTEP, Jimbo Fisher, Texas A&M. That makes sense, right? Because he wants to get in. So he had to knock them down. Nick Saban makes sense because he wants another SEC school in there, of Alabama. And Gary Patterson of TCU. All put the Buckeyes at number 5. One coach placed them at number 6. Kirby Smart placed them at number 6. Now, Dabo Swinney, who's of course is playing Clemson's head coach, playing the Buckeyes in their semifinal matchup on the 2nd. Dabo didn't even put Ohio State in his top 10. He put him at number 11. And they're like, if so now everybody today is saying, oh, Florida State should be motivated. If Florida State has to get motivated by Dabo Swinney putting them at number 11, they don't deserve to be there. Right? Like, oh my gosh. It cracks me up how people are totally flipping out about this. The article says Dabo clearly took issue with the number of games played by the Buckeyes because in front of the Buckeyes, he had Coastal Carolina, Iowa State, Oklahoma, Cincinnati, Georgia, Florida, Texas A&M. Look at it. The article says, you can bet that Dabo's poll is being posted on highly visible bulletin boards around the Woody Hayes football facility and maybe even in each player's locker as they prep to take on the Tigers, now with an added chip on their shoulder. If you're going into this game and you're like, oh my God, that's the motivation we need, you shouldn't even be in there. You shouldn't even be there. It's an absolute joke. Kirby Smart even had 3-loss Florida at number 4 in his poll, which is 2 spots ahead of where he put Ohio State. I mean, it's fantastic. Now keep in mind, these guys are trying to, the SEC guys are trying to get more SEC teams in there, so that's why they're doing it, right? So, according to everybody, Ohio State's got some new stuff against Dabo Swinney. So, what bowl games are you guys excited to watch? I'll get it all posted at the Main Event Pod, so everybody will have the information on the bowl games when they're being played. Of course, first one today. I'm not going to watch it. It looks like a bad game. If I'm around, I'll have it on TV, but that's the best part, right? So the next thing is college football coaches are being hired. Obviously, South Carolina found their coach. A couple of the smaller schools found their coach. We're going to talk about Arizona's deal in a minute. But the interesting thing that I found was Illinois finally went out, got a big name. Now they had Lovie Smith there, who of course was a big name, being coach of the Bears and everything for years. But he struggled in Illinois. He saved his job last year by going on a winning streak. Struggled this year, so he got out. But the New York Giants lost an assistant. And this guy's a former Wisconsin head coach. Had success at Wisconsin. He left there, went to, I believe, Arkansas? He won 40 games in his last 4 seasons with the Badgers and won 3 Big 10 titles, excuse me. So he's going back to the Big Ten. He's going to be Illinois' new head coach. The Fighting Illini. Bulimia is bulimia. Bulimia is, he's from Illinois, but he played football at Iowa. Of course, I just said he led Wisconsin to 3 Big Ten titles. He's a Big Ten kind of coach. It's going to be a 6-year contract, $4.2 million a year. He left his jobs with the Giants. He's starting with Illinois immediately. He was at the game on Saturday against Penn State, too. So places are finding their coaches that they want to hire. And some big names are going off the board. Now, of course, he's a Big Ten guy. I think he'll do great in the Big Ten. But then you got teams like University of Arizona, right? Fired Kevin Sumlin after 3 years of ineptitude. The names that came out right when he got fired, there's a bunch of them, but obviously Navy's head coach. I'm not even going to try to say his name because I don't want to disrespect him. But then he came out and said that he hasn't even been talked to yet. Then you got San Jose State's head coach, Brent Brennan. And it came out today that the head coach's name, of course, Brent Brennan of San Jose State, has been picking up traction in the Arizona search. Now, because all the U of A fans that I'm reading about and everything say they want a guy with Arizona, who's been to Arizona, knows the culture, et cetera, et cetera. Brent, I guess he falls into this, right? He had a stint on Arizona staff as a graduate assistant in 2000 under Dick Tomey. That doesn't mean he's an Arizona guy like everybody's saying he is. You know? Okay, he coached there as a graduate assistant. Didn't even coach. Graduate assistants stand there and learn stuff. But the one thing about this guy is he builds programs on the West Coast, which of course is where you recruit and do all that stuff when you're in the Pac-12. San Jose State, I mean, he's got a losing record there, but he did go 7-0 this year. But before that, he was awful. And I don't know how much credit you could put on this year with all the, issues that, I mean, he had to vacate. They couldn't play at home there. They had to move. They had to play at Hawaii when they were supposed to have a home game. They had to play in Vegas last weekend, I think. So they had a lot of turmoil and stuff, and they still went 7-0. That's great. The program's being rebuilt at San Jose State. I just don't know if he's ready to step up Pac-12. As somebody that follows the Arizona State program, and I've seen guys come up like Dirk Cutter from Boise State, right? Get him up there. They don't always work out. They don't always work out. I like to see somebody with a little bit more winning record, consistently winning. Yeah, he's improved every year he's been at San Jose State. But we haven't really seen him in it with adversity yet. So is it stepping up to Arizona? One thing I will say is he does do more with less, which is what you need when you go to Tucson. And like I said earlier, coincidentally, San Jose State's playing in the I mean, if they're going to hire this guy, they need to hire him before the bowl game or right around there. Because that bowl game's on New Year's Eve. You're going to wait another week and a half to make that happen? Of course, Dave Hickey, the athletic director of Arizona, says they want, quote, someone who will embrace what has made Arizona football great. That's passion. That's toughness. That is believing in our history and our tradition and our past. He goes on to say it's a little bit different of a place. You really have to believe in it here. Yeah. Basically, he's saying we don't give you the support and facilities, so we need somebody that will succeed in those conditions. But apparently, Brennan is now the leader in the clubhouse, at least publicly, for Arizona. I just don't know, man. I'm always weary of these guys that aren't at schools for a long time. And, he's winning at a place, but his record there's 11-29. And like I said, you can't blame him because he went there with basically the school was barren. There's a reason he was hired there. Was the, schedule wasn't good, or the team wasn't good. Obviously, they got fired. Haven't been to a bowl game yet. So there's obviously a reason he was there. So it's not like you can blame him for having a losing record. When he got there for the first few years, he's got to bring in his own guys. And those things, I get that. I mean, but of the names I've seen, he's probably the best one. I'm not excited about it. But I'm not excited about it because, like I said, I've seen a lot of these guys come up from this position. Dirk Cutter's a good example. But then again, you've seen a lot of big name guys. Bob Stoops. You go to Arizona and not do well either. Kevin Sumlin, for instance. Go to Arizona and not do well. So I think this is the route you want to take. That's why the Navy guy was good as well, even though he runs a system that I wouldn't particularly think fits in the Pac-12. But I mean, of all the names you got, I mean, he's one of the leaders. I mean, who else is going to, go down there? So, I mean, his first 2 years as head coach of San Jose State, they won just 3 games combined. They had a 1-11 season in 2018. The team has improved every year. Like I said, you can't blame him for the record at the beginning. He didn't have his players in there. He wasn't recruiting. Plus, now he's made contacts on the West Coast for recruiting out here, which is what you need to do. What a lot of guys falter out here when they come out here. So I don't know how Arizona. Interns making fun of me for saying we don't give you the support or the facilities, and we're looking for someone who can concede in that environment. I mean, that's exactly, I said that for a reason. You have bad facilities down there. They're getting better. They're a basketball school. Look how much leash they give their basketball coach. The guy's got NCAA breathing down his back. He actually has the FBI bringing down his back for, he had an assistant that was, arrested and did jail time. And they give him that big old leash, right? And then football's the other story, man. So they need somebody that can go in there, San Jose doesn't have I don't know how they compare to the other Mountain West schools, but he went to a school that doesn't have a history of success, large amounts of success. He's improved every year. 7-0 this year, but is he ready to go to a Power 5 conference like the Pac-12? I don't know. Well, I guess we'll find out, right? But it looks like he's the guy in the front runner, at least publicly. There's always some guy that you never heard about that could get it too, right? So you got to watch out for that. Of course, over the weekend, Arizona State played in their final game. After this game, they announced they were not going to go to a bowl game. But they had to go to Oregon State this weekend. I call this one basically a glorified practice, right? Because, it doesn't matter. But I did want to see how they were going to respond to that drubbing of Arizona the week before. Just curious how it would work. The Sun Devils rushed for 375 yards total between everybody. Quarterback got involved. Running backs got involved. 6 touchdowns. And they beat Oregon State this weekend. So they basically have a 500 record this year in a season that doesn't really matter. Right? As I said, at the post-game conference, Herm Edwards, ASU coach, head coach, confirmed that the Sun Devils will not play in a bowl game, even if a spot is available. I get it. You lose a lot of money to go to bowl games, 2-2 season. Players probably need a break. In order to play this year, it would just be like basically another practice type game. I get it. Cold, rainy deal at Oregon State, where Arizona State won 46-33. Of course, they ended up 2-2 on the season. It wasn't even that close. The Beavers scored on the final play, 16-yard pass. Oregon State was 2-5 on the season. As I said, Rachaad White, if I can say the name there, had 158 of those 375 yards on the ground, 13 carries. It's outrageous. Rachaad White show. This team's going to be good next year on offense, with Jaden Daniels rushing for 83 yards and 2 touchdowns. DeMonte Trainium, 57 yards, 1 touchdown. Other guys ran the ball as well to get up there. They had 514 total yards. 375 of that was on the ground. Oregon State passed the ball a lot more because ASU only had 139 yards of passing, but Oregon State was down most of the game. ASU scored 116 points in its final 2 games. Obviously, they put up 70 on Arizona. 40, what was that? What did I say? 46 against Oregon State. It was great. It's just the team you wanted to see. And that's what you want to see, how they would react. It was cold. It was rainy up there going into next year. This offense is going to be great next year. So just want to touch on that a little bit. good. I just like the recovery. I like how they came back to win, and basically a meaningless game. They came back. They played hard. They won. It was cold. It was rainy on the road. Long year, and they went up there. They didn't let their guard down, which is what you wanted to see, especially after the first two games this year, where well, at least the first game they had the lead most. They were dominating the game mostly, lost in the last 3 or 4 minutes, and then the UCLA game where they didn't come out well, came back into it, and then lost at the end too. It's just great to see. That's what I wanted to see from them as they went. But isn't it amazing how in Arizona we have these two dichotomies of teams? Arizona State's definitely still improving and on the upswing. U of A's definitely, have they hit the bottom? We don't even know. But they're pretty close. Because also U of A's starting quarterback, Grinnell, put his name in the transfer portal. Doesn't mean he'll leave. It just means he's going to see if there's any interest anywhere else. New coach might want to keep him. But they're just in turmoil down there. It's just amazing to see the difference between the two, factions here in the state of Arizona. So let's get into it. That's fun. All fun and dangerous. But this weekend in NFL was a lot of playoff implications this weekend. Actually, you know what? I apologize. I gotta at least do the the college football pick'em that me and All Access crew member Mikkel go head to head, and in that we gotta at least go over this because works hard on his picks. The games we had was Oregon at SC, Northwestern at Ohio State, Oklahoma at Iowa State, Clemson, Notre Dame, Alabama, Florida, and ASU at Oregon State. Have to do this because I picked well. I was 5-1 on the day. Of course, I lost. I had USC winning the Pac-12. They should have won that game, not on the field necessarily, but just they were the better team. Should have won that game, won the conference. Now the Pac-12 looks like a joke with Oregon winning it and going to the Orange Bowl or whatever game they're going to. Just ridiculous. Two-loss team going to a bowl game and winning the Pac-12. Just a team with the worse record than the team they just beat is going to play in a bowl game, high-powered bowl game, and winner of the Pac-12. Don't get me started. A team with 2 losses, like even though SC lost that game, they should still be the winner of the conference because they have the better record. Drives me nuts. Drives me absolutely batty. But that's a whole other deal, right? So, I went 5-1. Mikkel, All Access crew member, 5-1 also. Also lost USC, incidentally enough. So, let's just pretend that he thinks the same way I do. And he thinks that, they shouldn't have gone. USC should have won that game. All that fun stuff. So, we'll have the totals up. Like I said, we're not going to do all the bowl games. We'll do the big games coming up here. I'm going to email those to you, Mikkel, so watch for that. And then I'll figure out which ones we're going to do. And then a date to have it back. We obviously don't need them back. We're going to wait and see what kind of rolls out in the next week. So we'll give some time to study. We're not going to pick like today and then be disappointed because of injuries or something. So I'll get that information together and over to you. So let me know if you have any thoughts on how to do that as well, Mikkel. Of course, next year we'll open up the college deal. We kind of threw this together this year, the way the season's gone. We kind of threw it together. I appreciate it. Was fun going up against a All Access crew member against me. I know the finals, and we're going to put together and do the finals, but I don't want it to influence the picks. I hate it more than anything. When you're like, say like I knew Ohio State was going to win, but because I needed to pick up a game on somebody, that I'm going to pick Northwestern even though I don't think they're going to win because I need to catch up. I hate when people do that. Pick who you think is going to win, and then we'll let it sort out at the end. So like I said, that's why I never put the totals out after a while because people were doing that. I caught it. So 5-1 for both of us. Great finishing of the regular season by both of us, and we're going to include the bowl games under that as we go. So now let's get into the NFL. Playoff implications happened yesterday. Breaking news this morning. It's not the biggest news on the planet by any stretch. Panthers fired their GM, Marty Hurney, this morning. Only thing that's interesting about this is obviously he brought in Matt Rule last year. Right? He brought in Matt Rule, who's there to play. And basically, Panthers put out a statement, and it said, after discussions with Hurney about the structure of the franchise, they differed on approach. That's the owner is putting this out. The owner said he respected Hurney's traditional style, but wants a modern, data-driven process in his football operations office. Owner goes on to say, quote, I think sometimes you just need a restart, a refresh, unquote. He also goes on to say, quoting again, we did it last year on the coaching side. Maybe you could say it should have been done before on the GM side. Maybe it should have been. I'm sure people will say that or otherwise on both sides. I think it's just time on both sides to do that. It just seems like the right time to move forward, unquote. So obviously they're looking for somebody that thinks like Matt Rule and does that deal. You know. Interesting thing about Hurley is he actually was fired by the Panthers back in 2012, I think. Then he was brought back to work with Ron Rivera again. And Washington needs a GM, and he works well with Ron Rivera, so he might find a place in Washington. But it's just interesting with the new head coach. Now they get rid of because normally GMs want to bring in their own coaches, right? So they need to find somebody that's going to work with Matt Rule, who's new to the NFL, and do all that. It's tough hiring it this way, is what I'm getting at. So I'm interested in seeing how this goes and how this works out. So yesterday there was a lot of stuff going on yesterday, of course. Oop. I don't understand why we have sound. We're going to get into, yesterday's games a little bit, but I found it interesting, so I want to touch on this first. The Atlanta Falcons, man. Dan Quinn, I told you guys needed to go earlier in the season. He was on my hot seat from the beginning. There was a culture there of losing late game situations. It happened at the beginning of this year, happened in a Super Bowl. It's still there. Buccaneers trailed the Falcons 17-0 at halftime. They came back and they won 31-27. Tom Brady had 320 passing yards and a pair of pass TDs in the second half. 320 yards, 2 passing touchdowns in the second half. Think about that for a minute. Obviously, prior to Sunday, Brady's most recent win after trailing by 17 points, because he's done it 3 times before yesterday. It was the Falcons in the Super Bowl when they trailed 21-3 at halftime. I just found that interesting. Just an interesting deal. We can rail on the Atlanta Falcons for allowing it to happen. But I think that's just an interesting thing that's happened. David Montgomery of the Bears, give him some props. Bears, of course, won yesterday against Minnesota, kept their playoff hopes alive. We're going to get into that. The Bears have found a formula to win with Trubisky back in there, by the way. Trubisky wins with the Bears. They're 5-6 and something with him. 5. They've won 5 games with him this year. When they made the quarterback switch, they've only won twice. But yesterday they went and handed the ball off to Montgomery. 32 carries, 146 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns. On the ground, the Bears won 33-27. He's the second player in team history with 30-plus carries, 140-plus rushing yards, and at least 2 rushing touchdowns in a game. I'll give you guys a couple guesses on who number 1 is. Of course, you have a couple really good choices here in Chicago, right, in terms of running backs. but it is, of course, Walter Payton. He had 3 of those games in his career. Those of you that follow my Cardinals Rewind podcast, man, what a Cardinals-Eagles game yesterday. I'm going to record that on probably Wednesday this week. Get that back out. Big game against the Niners this weekend for the Cardinals. I want to see the injury reports so we can preview that game accurately. But, man, what a game yesterday. Jalen Hurts' second start of the season. Of course, Kyler Murray in his second year. They each had 3 passing touchdowns and both had a rushing touchdown yesterday. Jalen Hurts is the first rookie since 1970 merger to have 3 passing touchdowns and running for a score in one of his first 2 career starts. This was also the second game since the 1970 merger in which opposing quarterbacks each had at least 3 passing touchdowns and at least 1 rushing touchdown. You'll never guess who did it before. You'll never guess it. It's amazing who it was. Chad Pennington and Matt Castle in a Dolphins versus Patriots game in 2008. You wouldn't have guessed that. And if you would have guessed that, I would have called BS. There's no way you would know that at all. Yeah, that was an exciting quarterback matchup there. Prior to this season, no quarterback in NFL history has ever had a 2,000 plus rushing yards over a 2-season span, or even 800 plus rushing yards in consecutive seasons. Well, we have one now. Lamar Jackson. Right? Lamar Jackson struggled this year a lot. A lot of people are down on him. He's looked good these last couple of weeks, right? But a lot of people were down on him. And he's still running the football very well. Derrick Henry is known for yet another disgusting stiff arm yesterday that just throws people to the ground. I saw a cut of people who cut up all of his stiff arms, and it was just fantastic. He literally throws guys to the ground. I couldn't find it this morning, though. But Derrick Henry reached the 1,500 yards, 1,515 threshold for a second straight season. So basically 15 rushing for at least 1,500 yards and 15 touchdowns. 2 years in a row now. It's happened, I think, 3 times. Oh, he's the 4th player in NFL history to do this in consecutive seasons. So 1,500 plus rushing yards, 1,500 plus rushing touchdowns in consecutive seasons. Previously, Terrell Davis, who's in the Hall of Fame, 97-98. Sean Alexander in 2004-2005. When they did that, they won the NFL MVP award in that second season. And this is Derrick Henry's second season. Will he win the MVP? Normally that goes to a quarterback. But is he playing better than like Aaron Rodgers is, for instance, who's obviously an MVP candidate? Might be. He might win that MVP award. Buffalo clinched its first division title since 1995, of course, yesterday. So the Bills tie the receiving touchdown record in this game. So I'm going to read this because it can be confusing, but check this out. Jake Kumerow, I don't know how to say it, hauled in a 22-yard touchdown pass in the second quarter of the Bills' win over the Broncos on Saturday. And put them up 21-7, and it wound up being the winning points as Buffalo clinched its first division title since 95. Kumerow is the 13th different Bills player to catch a TD pass this season, tying the NFL record for most such players on one team in a single season. 13 different players have caught a touchdown pass for the Bills this season. 13. Wow. Josh Allen doesn't care who you are. You get your opportunity to play, get in there, and he will find you if you're open. You know? Calvin Ridley, of course, with the Atlanta Falcons. He had 10 receptions, 163 receiving yards, and a receiving TD yesterday, but of course with the loss to Tampa Bay. We talked about Brady earlier. Ridley is the third player in NFL history with at least 10 receptions and a receiving touchdown in a single game on his birthday. Somebody broke this down. I love it. I love stats like this. So each of the previous two instances were by Hall of Famers with the Rams. Tom Fears had 18 receptions and a pair of scores against the Packers in 1950. And Isaac Bruce, probably the name you remember of the two, had 10 receptions and 3 receiving touchdowns versus the Chargers in 2002. So Calvin Ridley turned 26 years old yesterday. Had a great game, and they still lost it. So happy birthday on your stats, and not so happy birthday because you guys lost. Not only did you lose, you lost a big lead. Again. Tyreek Hill tied Dwayne Bowie's single-season Chiefs record from the 2010 season with his 15th receiving touchdown of the season yesterday. Hill leads the NFL with 17 total touchdowns this season and is the first player in NFL history with 15-plus receiving touchdowns and at least 2 rushing touchdowns in a single campaign. Who's the other one? Randy Moss. 1998, 2003, 2007 season. Only wide receivers with 17-plus total touchdowns in any of the last 25 seasons. That interesting. You'd think more guys would have that record, but they don't. Justin Jefferson for the Vikings. You know, I'm the guy giving the Offensive Rookie of the Year to Herbert in San Diego. Just because he's the quarterback. He's been slinging it. He's been looking good. He had a couple of bad games, but he's been looking good. He touches the ball every time. And that's why I give it to him over Justin Jefferson. But Jefferson had 8 receptions yesterday, and he broke Randy Moss's team record for receptions by a rookie. Moss had 69 in 1998. Jefferson now has 73 with 2 games to go. He's on pace for 1,350 receiving yards this season, which would also break Ross's team rookie record of 1,313. So 2 games to go. I don't know. Maybe it's time we start paying attention. Justin Jefferson, is he the Offensive Rookie of the Year over Herbert? Might need to start looking into this a little bit. Devin White, Buccaneers linebacker, 12 tackles and 3 sacks in the win over the Falcons in Week 15. So basically, since 2000, he's the only player with multiple games with 10-plus tackles and at least 3 sacks in his career. That's a lot of tackling, folks, right? 12 tackles and 3 sacks against the Falcons yesterday. He had 11 tackles and 3 sacks in Week 7 against the Raiders. Of course, the only other player, Rams linebacker Troy Reeder, is 10 tackles, 3 sacks in Week 5 against Washington. Is the only other player with such a game this season. He only has 1. Devin White now has 2. But anyway, just some interesting, stats and records that happened yesterday as we're wrapping up this season. I'm fascinated by this stuff, especially the birthday one. So I'll get those posted out, of course, at the Main Event Pod for you guys. You can look that up here. I'll do it when the show's over. I'll get it all scheduled to be posted today. Just something I get fascinated by as I go, right? So Saturday we had 2 NFL games. Of course, Buffalo and Denver Broncos. Buffalo dominated this game, 48-19. I'm telling you guys, I've been saying it for 3-4 weeks now. Buffalo Bills are the second best team in the AFC. The Chiefs, of course, are ahead of them. The Buffalo Bills, if they were in the NFC, they would be the favorites to go to the Super Bowl in the NFC. Buffalo Bills are dominant. Buffalo Bills are exciting. I'm not going to say they're going to beat the Chiefs, but I'm going to say they're going to give the Chiefs a run for their money. That'll be an exciting game to watch. Buffalo has the offense to hang with the Chiefs. They got the defense. They can keep it close. I mean, what Sean McDermott has done in Buffalo has been fantastic with that team and what he's done with Josh Allen's improvement. Of course, like I told you, they won the franchise's first division title since '95. I mean, their offense is just explosive. I'm a little worried about their run defense. They have a hard time doing it. I mean, just imagine if the Cardinals didn't get that Hail Mary against them. They'd have 12 wins right now. They're 11-3 right now. They'd have 12 wins today. I'd be worried about their postseason, right? If they don't have any experience, but they were in the postseason last year. They got a little bit of experience last year. So I think that's kind of not something to worry about. Bills are a team to pay attention to, folks. Been saying it for a couple of weeks now. Josh Allen got that offense rolling. Josh Allen's good. When I was at that Cardinals thing, I was surprised how big and tall he was and that's how he commanded himself in the pocket. It was amazing to watch. Stephon Diggs being traded to this team. Incidentally, guys, two of the leading receivers this year were both acquired by trades. Diggs got 11 catches for 147 yards on Saturday. He set the franchise record for receptions in a season. He's at 111 receptions. 2 games to go. And they got him in a trade. Minnesota gave up on him and traded him, thinking he wasn't very good. Oops. Josh Allen, this is a stud. Broncos have officially been eliminated from the playoffs. I mean, it was just a formality of when. They struggled all year off and on. The defense is fairly reliable, but it can't win. It's not good enough to win games for them. The offense is limited and efficient. That's being kind. Starting quarterback is. They're up and down with the starting quarterback, Lock. I mean, Drew Lock didn't even throw the ball downfield on Saturday. It was just dink and dunk. It was awful. They got destroyed. Of course, the fumbles didn't help too, right? The other game was the Panthers at Green Bay. Man, just Green Bay's going to get the number 1 seed in the NFC because the Saints aren't going to get it back. So you're going to have to go to the frozen tundra to play playoff games, 2 of them this year. If Green Bay can make it to the championship game. 24-16, Green Bay beat the Panthers. I just don't. Green Bay's offense just isn't great right now. Struggling. It's going to need more from this offense to compete, even if it's in Green Bay, in the playoffs. Green Bay did score more than 30 points the last 4 weeks. Rodgers did pass his league best 40th touchdown of the year, so that sets an NFL record. I mean, Green Bay went out and they scored touchdowns in his first 3 possessions. Then they did nothing. 3 points after that. They went into shutdown mode. It's not good. A good team playing a good team isn't going to help you if you do that. Packers are 11-3 though. They have the Titans, I think, this week, and then the Bears the following week. That number 1 seed's huge for Green Bay, and I just don't know, man. I don't know if they're the best team in the NFC. course, the Panthers are going to rebuild now. Let's see what the Panthers do going into this offseason, how they look the next couple years. I mean, the Panthers' offense isn't that great when Christian McCaffrey isn't playing. Of course, Teddy Bridgewater can't fumble, at the goal line going in for a score. I think that was in the second quarter, if I remember correctly. I could be wrong. You can't do that. That's a killer. And the Cardinals did that yesterday, too. It's infuriating. So that was Saturday's game. It's great to see Saturday NFL football. Of course, then you got the Sunday games. Let's get to the picks real quick here. Let's go to the picks, and then we'll break down Sunday's games. Since we're running along today, because we had a long discussion about NHL earlier in there, and a long discussion on college football. But we had Seahawks at Washington, Bears at Vikings, Eagles at Cardinals, Chiefs at Saints, Browns at Giants. On Wednesday night's program, I did pick Washington football team. Full disclosure, I tweeted out once Alex Smith wasn't going to play that I was switching the pick to the Seahawks, so I did do that. Just so you know. Kaler, 4-1 yesterday. His loss was the Vikings. Adam and Izzy, 5-0. Guys got 5-0. Adam, 2 undefeated. He had 6-0 last week, 5-0 this week. Adam's on a roll right now. I was 6-0 last week, 4-1 this week. Wah, wah. My loss was the Vikings also. I thought the Vikings could beat the Bears. Oops. All Access crew members, Miguel and intern. I'm sure you guys know what you picked by now. So I'm just not gonna advertise it. I'm not gonna discuss it. You guys know what you got. We don't need to dwell on that. Just kidding. Both Miguel and intern 5-0 yesterday. All 5 games correct. Good job, guys. Good job. That's awesome, actually. Really good. So now that 2 weeks left in the season, get the totals out on that as well. Like I said, I just don't want people to pick games that they don't think they can win just to try to pick up things. And the person that is listening to this right now knows who I'm talking about. Intern says, woohoo! For her picks at 5-0. On the Facebook feed, of course, you guys, as you guys know, you can follow us live, Facebook and Twitter live. And then do your comments and stuff. We'll read them, of course, if they're, respectful, make sense. And then this also goes out on the podcast systems later. So yesterday, huge playoff implications yesterday. Huge draft implications yesterday. Let's start with that one. New York Jets, 23. Los Angeles Rams, 20. So, Jets get their first win. They're now number 2 in the drafting position. Jacksonville Jaguars have the number 1 draft pick now with that win by the New York Jets. Now, look, the players are going to play. I see a lot of what are the Jets doing? I joke around about that. The players are out there to win the games. Players don't care about the draft position. That's for ownership and them to worry about. Players get paid to win the games and be successful out there on the field. And they went out there yesterday and did it. So you can't fault the Jets. It's just a funny little storyline about how the Jets, can't even lose properly, right? It's a funny storyline. But what's up with the Rams, right? They look so good one week. They look horribly the next week. Of course, the Jets broke their 13-game losing streak this season. I mean, they dominated the Rams. I was all around. Special teams, punt block. They blocked a punt. They intercepted pass of Jared Goff. The Jets defense held the Rams to 303 yards. Sam Darnold played a great game. I mean, he was able to scramble out of the pocket a lot. Kept the Jets' offense going. Darnold completed 71% of 31 passes for 207 yards and a touchdown. He wasn't able to throw it downfield very much, but only 2 sacks for Aaron Donald yesterday. Well, 2 sacks for the Jets offense. And that's a big thing with Aaron Donald chasing you all the time. Frank Gore churned out the yards and dialed down that clock when they had the lead at the end. Frank Gore doing his thing, right? And then on top of it, after running the ball and keeping the ball out of the Rams' offensive hands, Frank Gore catches a 3rd down catch for a 1st down and allowed the Jets to go into victory formation. So great that they won that game. Now they're the 2nd draft pick now. I'm not sure Justin Fields is going to be that great of a quarterback in the NFL. That style doesn't always translate. I mean, you have the can't-miss prospect that everybody says with Trevor Lawrence. Then after that, it kind of drops off a little bit. Changes. This is a franchise-altering deal, right? And on top of it, think about the coaching decision for the Jets, right? They're going to probably need a new head coach with Adam Gase. If they got Trevor Lawrence coming into that team, who wouldn't want to coach Trevor Lawrence? Now it all changes. Have they now become the worst coaching place in the NFL again? There's better teams to go to. I mean, this win changes the dynamics of not just the draft order, because now they draft 2, but also who their next head coach is going to be. They're going to lose out on some big names and popular names because they're not getting the quarterback and Trevor Lawrence to go in there. It's a big deal. I mean, the Rams are just up and down. They're 9-5 on the season. Jared Goff, horrible again this week. Just absolutely horrible. It's amazing how 1 week he's great. Like when he played the Cardinals, it was great. Now he looks like that garbage again. Before the Cardinals, he looked like garbage. It's amazing how he goes up and down. So the Jaguars do finish the season against the Bears and the Colts. Of course, their only win was against the Colts in week 1. That ain't happening again. And the Bears are on a roll right now. Although we need, as Cardinal fans, we need Jacksonville to beat the Bears. But there's no way they're going to win now, right? The Jets play Cleveland and New England to close out 2020. The Jets aren't winning against Cleveland. They might have a shot against New England. Right? Next game up, big game this weekend. Chiefs at Saints. Chiefs win this game 32-29. Drew Brees returns. Michael Thomas, of course, goes on IR. He's out for the regular season. Should be back for the playoffs with his ankle injury. So, Chiefs just win. They went out there and won. Now, what else can you say, right? Chiefs are 13-1 now. Saints are 10-4. The one thing is the Saints did on that defense. Their defense is good. They basically kept the Chiefs from throwing the deep ball. Everything has to be short and ready to go. They defended the pass first, not the run first, which is what a lot of teams do. Is they try to stop the Chiefs' run and make them throw it. And they Saints didn't do that. Kansas City racked up 179 yards on the ground. It's most since week 6. They ran the ball 41 of its 92 total plays. They went to a balanced style offense, which the Chiefs generally aren't balanced. They throw the ball a lot. The Saints held Kansas City below 250 passing yards, and they did sack Mahomes 3 times. The offense, the Saints offense, same as it's been with Drew Brees coming back. Brees was rusty. He couldn't complete a pass to begin the game. Went 0-6 to begin the game. First time in his career. Really bad interception he threw. The New Orleans first 4 possessions lasted 3 plays. No first downs. Kansas City got out to a 14-0 lead and dominated the time of possession battle. 41 minutes to 18 minutes, roughly. Brees did wake up a little bit. He ended up with 234 yards and 3 scores. But when you start that bad against the Chiefs, you're just not going to win that game. New Orleans was 1 for 11 on third down. But the Saints were within 3 points at the end of the game. These teams are being healthy. That's why Michael Thomas is on IR to get healthy. Drew Brees gets healthy. These teams meet in the Super Bowl. That'll be a fun game to watch. So, the Chiefs running back, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, left the game in the second half with some injuries. You might miss some time here coming up, getting ready for the playoff run. But he did get injured in the second half. But here's the weird thing, right? For the Chiefs, this team we know they can outscore you. We know they can do whatever they need to do. But Kansas City has faced a stout defense in the last 2 weeks. And the Kansas City was forced to change their offense, right? To adjust it. Basically, the Chiefs' offense of high power, where they just do what they want, go down the field and score, they haven't been able to do that the last 2 weeks. So they've had to adjust. They aren't able to put up a ton of points. They still scored 32 points while having to do this. Mahomes finished with the passer rating below 93 for a second straight game. They aren't putting teams away like they did before. Is that because they're bored? There's no way they should have been bored with the game against the Saints, right? This is the sixth consecutive game where they've won by a single possession. They're still winning. They're still getting out of there safely. But how will this injury to Clyde Edwards-Helaire affect them? But the thing about this Chiefs and why they're the best team is they're able to adjust. You shut down one aspect of that offense, they go to something else, and you can't stop that one. And we're seeing it right now in front of our faces. They don't win huge, right? But you shut down the long passes, you shut down the passing game, all right, we'll run the ball. You go to shut down the running game, all right, we'll pass the ball. It's amazing why. They're by far the best team out there, the best complete team in the league. It's great to watch. And I think a Saints-Chiefs Super Bowl would be fantastic to watch. The defenses matched up, the defense against this Chiefs offense. We just saw it. It would be fantastic. I don't think Green Bay matches up with the Chiefs very well at all. Chiefs will be able to do whatever they want with that Green Bay defense. Then it would just be, can the Green Bay offense score as much as the Chiefs do? I don't even know if they can do that. Browns at the Giants, of course, Sunday Night Football last night. Cleveland won 20-6. Baker Mayfield's coming to his own these last few weeks, man. I've been down on Baker. I don't think he's the quarterback of that team for very much longer or anything. He's playing well. Got to give him his props for playing well. Browns are 10-4 on the season. the Giants shut down the Browns' running game a lot, especially early in that game. Baker Mayfield took it on his shoulders and did well. Baker Mayfield, 27 of 32 passes, 297 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Over the last 4 games, he's had 10 touchdowns, averaged 308 yards a game, and just 1 interception. It's great. I mean, he's playing well. You can't argue with that Browns offense right now. But even though they've won 10 games and this is the case, they're not in that next elite field, right? They're not in that Buffalo Bills. They're not in that Kansas City Chiefs level yet. They're still a tier below them. They might win the first round of a playoff game, but they're not going to go much farther after that, I don't think. Maybe they'll surprise. Baker Mayfield keeps playing like this, with Nick Chubb playing like he does. Browns can do it. Browns can do some damage. Right? I mean, Cleveland's going to go to the playoffs. It's just a matter of who they match up against. Right now, the Browns are the AFC's top number 5 seed. And they have some tough games coming up still. The interesting thing is that I got out of this is, the Giants offensive coordinator is, of course, I just forgot his name. Jason Garrett, right? And he was out yesterday with COVID. And so Freddie Kitchens stepped in and was making the play calls yesterday. They only scored 6 points. And part of me going into this game was like, if Freddie Kitchens does good, Jason Garrett's going to be out of a job. There's already rumors of him being out of a job. And Freddie Kitchens, of course, was the head coach last year for Baker Mayfield and the Browns. And now he's going in and he was calling the Giants' plays last night. Problem is the Giants went with Colt McCoy as the starter. Right? Daniel Jones is still injured. The Giants just had nothing for him. The Giants are kind of falling out of this NFC East race a little bit with these last 2 losses. Of course, Cardinals and now the Browns. I mean, they're falling out of the NFC East race. They're probably not going to win that division, which means they're out of the playoffs. They're 5-9 now. They're in 3rd place in the division. They've scored 13 total points in the last 2 weeks. It's like they were really bad at the beginning of the season after all the injuries with Saquon, and then they started playing well. They had 4 straight wins. Then they got injured again, and now they're just going backwards. Injuries will do a damage on you for the Giants. Buccaneers at Falcons. We talked about this one earlier. Buccaneers 31, Falcons 27. Big news in this one, the comeback. Tom Brady comes back 17-0 at halftime, comes back and wins the game. Playing absolutely like garbage in the first half, the Buccaneers did. The Buccaneers are up and down. They're the 5th seed right now in the NFC. You don't know which team's coming. You have no faith the Buccaneers are going to do anything in the playoffs. They're just up one day. And I said at the beginning of the season, my prediction was the Buccaneers are going to win 10 games on the year. But they were going to do it in just absolute annoying fashion, meaning they'd struggle one game and then look good in the next. And that's exactly what the Buccaneers are. They looked like garbage the first half yesterday, and they looked like a Super Bowl contender in the second half. Right? They earned 60 total yards on 5 first-half drives. 60! 6-0. Matt Ryan and the Buccaneers were all over that Buccaneers Matt Ryan and the Falcons were all over that Buccaneers defense. 17-0. Third quarter alone, Brady passed for 188 yards on 3 touchdown drives. Mike Evans showed up to this game, right, in the second half. Tampa Bay's defense woke up, started playing well. After Atlanta scored their another touchdown at the beginning of the third quarter on their first drive, the Bucs defense allowed just 33 total yards and a field goal on the remaining 5 drives. This Tampa Bay team is disjointed and all over the place. It's going to be that way until they get eliminated from the playoffs. Of course, the Falcons, we've talked about them in the past. They have this unusual ability to just play well, then not play well, and lose games that they shouldn't lose. It's exactly what happened. In the second half, Falcons defense couldn't stop the Buccaneers. Matt Ryan and that offense couldn't do anything. They lost. I mean, the Buccaneers are 9-5 on the season now. They have Detroit and I think Atlanta again to finish the season. I think they have Atlanta coming up again. So they should get 10 wins. They should win one of these two, which is what I predicted they would do at the beginning of the season. And I said they'd make the playoffs, but they would be a struggle. And they're going to get eliminated pretty quickly because the thing about Tampa Bay is you can see them go on a deep run in the playoffs because they can play that good. And then you can also see them losing in the first round in horrific fashion because they do that also. They're the most anemic team. The team you can't figure out is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this year. Patriots at Dolphins. Dolphins get back on the running track here, 22-12 over New England. This is the first time Bill Belichick has lost to a rookie quarterback in a long time. Dolphins are 9-5 now. Of course, Patriots are 6-8. Patriots got eliminated from playoffs this weekend, I do believe. Dolphins are just going to run the ball all the time with Tua in there. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. That's their strategy. That's what they did. That's what they did. That's what they got done. Tua's still developing. I mean, he threw an interception from New England's 3-yard line early in the first quarter. And then he found himself in that same situation in the fourth quarter while down by 2. And this time, instead of throwing the interception, he pulled the ball down and ran it for a score. So he's learning on the fly, literally. First half, throws a bad throw, intercepted when he should have scored a touchdown. Fourth quarter, same situation, sort of. And he pulls the ball down and runs it. He learns on the fly. That's good. That's fantastic to watch when you see that stuff. Tua's learning literally on the field, and you can see it happen, and I love that. I love that about it. I love that about him. Yep, the Patriots were eliminated officially in the playoffs. So it ends Bill Belichick's record-setting run of 11 straight playoff appearances for him. Yeah, it couldn't happen to a better team. Cardinals 33, Eagles 26. Battle the quarterbacks. We talked about this when we talked about the records and stats over the weekend. Fun little article. They were on fire. Kyler Murray and his turnovers, though. The Cardinals kept the Eagles in this game when they shouldn't have. Interceptions in the red zone. Fumbles in the red zone. Absolutely maddening. Kept the Eagles in it, but they held on to win. Murray had 406 passing yards. Career high. And at one point, he tied a career best with 13 straight completions. Cardinals are 8-6, still in that 7th seed. In my Cardinals Rewind podcast, I told the Cardinals, you keep Jalen Hurts in the pocket and make him throw it. Do not let him run it. What does Jalen Hurts do? He throws the ball all over the place and looks like a throwing genius out there. Right? Cardinals did. They kept him in the pocket, and he was hurling that ball everywhere. It was a great game in terms of the quarterback side. Cardinals special teams came back this year, blocked a punt for the Eagles. Cardinals had a 16-0 lead at one point. They ran a fake punt where Andy Lee threw a pass, 34-yard pass. The Cardinals didn't score on that one, but still, Cardinals special teams stepped up, kept drives alive. I will say that the Eagles did a good job. Cardinals couldn't get to Jalen Hurts a lot in the first half, but boy, did they did in the second half. 6 total sacks. I mean, Jalen Hurts even got so much pressure in that first quarter. He threw a ball out, intentional grounding for a safety. Great game. I'll have more of that breakdown on the Cardinals Rewind podcast this week. Let's check it out. Great special teams plays by the Cardinals. Kyler Murray, again, turnovers are infuriating. 3 of them. And in the red zone, too, which is even more annoying. Titans 46, Lions 25. Tannehill came out, threw the ball all over the place. Derrick Henry, another huge stiff arm. Detroit Lions couldn't stop him. Dominating performance by the Titans, who are a really good team. Another AFC team that's really good. Matthew Stafford's still playing hurt. Does what he can, right? Titans have their 10th victory. But Tennessee did not clinch a playoff bid because Baltimore and Miami both won. They have Green Bay coming up and Houston coming up. So they could go 1-1 to finish the season. So they got 10 or 11 wins. Lions are officially eliminated from playoff contention, even though they've been out for a while. Bears Vikings, this one's an interest to Cardinals fans. Winner of this game is still chasing the Cardinals for that 7th spot. Loser's pretty much eliminated. Mitchell Trubisky doing his job, man. Winning some games for the Bears. As I said earlier in the stats division, they handed the ball to Montgomery a lot and had him dominate. Right? Vikings fell apart again. Kirk Cousins. Vikings dropped a lot of balls. Kirk Cousins was inaccurate at times like usual. Can't say enough about David Montgomery. But the Bears are coming back. Cardinals need to be careful and win. They have 2 games left, 49ers and Rams. They need to win to keep the Bears off. Bears could catch them in this playoff hunt. Bears can make the playoffs still. Seattle at Washington. Alex Smith missed the game due to injuries, which means Dwayne Haskins has to start. I, of course, changed my picks to Seattle. Washington losing this game, by the way, guarantees there won't be a winning team in the NFC East this year. So whoever goes to the playoffs will have a losing record. They are 6-8 on the season. At least they can finish 500 still. I guess I should clarify that. But then nobody's going to be 9-7. So at least 8-8. Seattle's 10-4, and they played. By the way, Seattle did clinch a playoff spot with the Rams losing it as well. They're in first place in the NFC West here. Dwayne Haskins played fairly well. Kept the Washington football team in it. But the Washington defense wasn't as hot as it has been. Seattle's run game just dominated them. That was what I was expecting the Washington football team to come out and do. Valiant effort by Washington. They're still in that playoff race in the East. And, of course, Seattle's in first place. San Francisco at Dallas. San Francisco's a beaten team. Cardinals have them this weekend at home. 41-33. Cowboys won. This should be a game for the Cardinals should win this weekend. San Francisco's hurting. Ezekiel Elliott, deemed inactive for this game. Didn't even play. You kidding me? Tony Pollard, second year back. Second start of his career. Played fairly well with Zeke being out. But what's going on with Zeke, man? That contract and everything, it's a joke. Enough about that one. Cowboys are 1 game behind in the NFC East. They can still make the playoff run if they win right. Jaguars at Baltimore. Nothing you can say about this. Baltimore won 40-14. Baltimore needs to keep winning. They're going to miss the playoffs. They don't get their act together. They need to keep winning. They have to. They have no room for error. The Ravens don't. Ravens are 9-5. Of course, as we know, Jaguars are 1-13 and now have the number one pick. Dez Bryant got his first score in over 3 years, by the way. Good for him. J.K. Dobbins was pretty good. 64 yards on 11 carries, 1 touchdown. So Ravens need to keep winning, and they are winning. We'll get to the playoff stuff here in just a minute. Texans at Colts. Colts won this one 27-20. A lot closer than it should have been. Deshaun Watson. Has no weapons. I was trying to figure out how to phrase that. Has no weapons on offense. Will Sutton's out, or Will Fuller's out, excuse me. David Johnson, is he back? David Johnson's back. But they ran up and down the field on that Colts defense at ready for a while. Phillip Rivers is playing all right now, keeping the Colts in it. Colts have won 10 games, 10-4, but they surrendered over 400 yards. That defense was so good earlier, now they're giving up a lot of yards to teams. And as I said, Houston doesn't have a lot of weapons on offense. To give up 400 to them is a shocker. The Colts own a +7 turnover difference in the last 3 games. And they, of course, got some turnovers in this game. Here's the thing, though. The Colts aren't dominating these games and winning them big, but they're doing all the small things to pull out the victories, which can be huge in playoffs as it goes to more of a struggle. You know, I know the Colts have 10 wins and they struggled a little bit, but don't sleep on them. They'll be all right. See what they can do in the playoffs when they get there, if they get there, right? A little conversation going on the Facebook Live here. Mikhail says, so they both went 5-0 on the picks, and intern Todd said, hey, we both went 5-0 on the picks. And Mikhail said, nice. It has to be because of all the NFL knowledge Steve's impacts us with, right? Yeah, I'm going to take credit for this. I'll take credit for this. So appreciate you listening, Mikhail. I know you had a run there. Hope everything's going well for you, man. Look forward to talking to you later on. So that's the NFL games this week going forward, right? One thing here before we go, I know we're going long today, so I'll break it up on the podcast system, but playoff picture time, right? Let's touch on this real fast before we go. Clinch playoff spots in the AFC is Chiefs, Steelers, and Bills. Clinch their divisions. I'm sorry, Chiefs clinch their division, Bills clinch their division. Steelers just clinched the playoffs so far. They're the 1, 2, 3 seed. Bills are the 3 seed. Titans are the 4 seed right now, 10-4. Browns are the 5 seed. Colts are the 6 seed. Dolphins are the 7 seed at 9-5. Right there on the bubble, though, the Ravens, 9-5. They both have easy games this week in theory. Dolphins have the Patriots. Ravens have the Jaguars. As I said, they have to, stay in this race. Ravens need a win to stay in this race. On the NFC side, Packers have the 1 seed. Saints have the 2 seed. Seahawks have the 3 seed. Washington right now is leading the NFC East with the 4 seed at 6-8. Rams are the 5 seed, even though they lost this weekend, 9-5. Bucks are 9-5 with the 6 seed, and Cardinals are 8-6. Bears are the team chasing them. Cardinals have to keep winning to keep the Bears in line here going forward. So a little bit of update on the playoff history there as we go forward. I appreciate everybody checking in today. I know we went a little long, but we had a lot of information and everything. So, of course, guys, at the Main Event Pod, I'll get all the show notes posted and everything for everybody. I'll get this out in podcast form. I'll break it down into a couple hours each, so it's easier to listen to. And I appreciate everybody. At SMAC500 is a personal social media site, so definitely give me a follow there, as well as at the Main Event Pod. Appreciate everybody watching. I'll see y'all. Of course, Wednesday night, I have the radio show this week, even though other shows are on vacation. We are doing Wednesday night. And because of the holidays, we're going to take Friday and Saturday, and Friday off this week and Friday off next week. Unless something big happens, then we'll get on the air this weekend. Otherwise, we'll be posting everything at the Main Event Pod. So see y'all Wednesday night on the radio show. See ya.